I'm a final year student. I've already had 2 years of the normal university life, 2 years of lectures, seminars, nights out, house parties, the lot. So it's very easy for me in my final year, especially as everything now gets serious with the dissertation and that kind of thing, easy for me to just say, everyone should do what I'm doing this year, which is staying at home 90% of the time, not seeing friends that often, certainly not mixing with other households, especially as I live in Leicester, which is under stricter rules than where I was for most of the summer back in the capital. And, Leicester is deemed to be a very high-risk area. So I, because I'm a final year student, really don't need to take all these risks because I already have friendships from uni, I've done all the uni stuff that people come to uni to do in the first place, and so I can easily suck it up and accept the situation and move on. But put yourselves in the shoes of a fresher for a moment. First of all, many of them will have already had a horrid summer with the total disaster, the total catastrophe that was A-level results day, with a ridiculous algorithm marking down many of their grades, literally for no reason whatsoever. And that was a scandal in and of itself, and the government had to backtrack and all that, but I digress. The fact is that students who had already been through that had their morale knocked substantially. And even if things during their first year weren't going to be as they'd initially hoped it would, moving to university for the first time is still a big deal. New city, new ways of working, new friends, even if hanging out with them will be different. So for them, they might be thinking, well, why not have a little house party here and there to get everyone in a good mood? Why should we have to sacrifice our experience after we've been thrown under the bus by the government? Some of us have had to make sacrifices ourselves during the pandemic as well. Some of us have been working throughout, volunteering, being in care. So we should be able to have our own fun too. That's what some of these freshers might be saying. Couple that with the fact that many feel that the government for the last couple of weeks has actually been increasingly blaming young people for the increase in cases, and you could be seeing a little bit of resentment there too. And if all that wasn't enough already, now try telling those same students who've had an awful summer, who are now having to isolate in these little pockets of outbreaks, try telling those same students that they should also have to stay on campus over the Christmas break. I mean, to say that a decision like that would be unpopular would be the understatement of the year, and yet the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has not ruled it out. But here's the thing. While students may not be in favour of such a move, and even someone like me would prefer to do a simple 10 to 14 day quarantine at the end of term, despite all of that, when you look at the science of how the virus spreads, a policy like this makes absolutely perfect sense. Scientifically, it is actually pretty sound because you have a lot of young people who may not be the best observers of social distancing, whose natural instincts might be to want to mingle, who might want to travel back home to their parents and grandparents and other vulnerable relatives across the country. That would be an absolute recipe for disaster. We have to be honest with ourselves here. That is if mitigations are not put in place. And I do think that both the government and universities can act now to make sure that such a move, if it's made, does not have to be so dramatic. I just gave the example of possibly giving students a chance to self-isolate for 10 to 14 days at the end of term before heading back home so that they know that when they left uni they were not infectious. The other thing that universities could do to bolster that is to offer testing to students. So they could ramp up their testing, give students a chance to take a couple of tests in the week before that they leave for university so that they have the medical certainty that they will be negative. And I know that some universities are already working on their in-house programs, including my own, which is definitely reassuring. But especially at Christmas, it would be extremely helpful to those students and their families. But look, we are where we are. On the whole, it's going to be an incredibly tough term and academic year for students and professors alike. But the most important message really and truly during this first term and beyond is to follow the government guidelines, follow your university guidelines, practice social distancing, wear masks, have diligent hand hygiene, and just limit your interactions with other households. I know it will be tough, especially for freshers, but if we all play our part, hopefully things will return to normal sooner rather than later.